He's real. He's no a myth. I've seen him with my own eyes.
It's an urban legend, you know, he's kind of Mr. Fantasy, isn't it?
There's no doubt in my head that he's not real.
I've never ever seen him though. I heard a lot of stories off old policemen and stuff like that.
He lives amongst the bushes and that. Don't go near him. Don't go near him.
I'm Paul Bristow. I'm a writer and a researcher with Magic Torch. We've been researching folklore specifically, but stories of the area for about 10-15 years now, and we've reinterpreted those in lots of different ways. So we've produced books, but also short films, we've done dramatic performances. It's all creative interpretation generally. The Greenock Catman is a character that sort of first appears, people start talking about him maybe about the late 70s, early 80s. That's certainly when I remember hearing about him myself growing up. He's a guy who essentially is sleeping rough, is living outside, but is feeding lots of cats, right? And lives in this really narrow lane, a sort of old cobbled lane between the town centre and the sort of east end of the town. Basically, he was just a harmless old guy, and he just happened to be sleeping rough. How he came to be in that situation and how he then turned into somebody that everybody thought was there for a long, long time, I think that's just part and parcel of a story being retold within a community, which is actually the most interesting bit of it for me.
He's wild. It's not like me or you. He's wild. And the cats, he looks after the cats. And he's got loads of cats
so
here.
He really thinks that he is one of the cats as well?
Yeah, that's why they call him the Catman. Because that's the way, his face is, you couldn't see his face. His face is all hairs. And that's it. He lives amongst the bushes. He doesn't live in a house or a shed or anything. He lives wild outside.
And does he hunt and eat rats?
He eats rats, oh yeah, he eats rats and mice. That's what he lives on. And maybe if somebody leaves something lying around, he'll pick it up. And he feeds the cats, you see. But it's a legend for Greenock. It's well known as the Catman. And as I say, I thought it was a myth, but it's definitely not a myth because he is there. And I just wouldn't even touch him. And when I saw him, I made sure I was a good distance away from him.
This is gospel, right? I remember saying to him one day, what you got to eat? And if he pulled out a rat that was absolutely rigid, do you know what I mean? And he's standing like that, as if this is what I've got to eat, you know? And you won't eat that, and he's doing that. Yes, no, yes, but.
So can he talk?
No, it's like as if his tongue or something wrong with his tongue. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't talk, no. But it used to come out, and then this is when he was in the tunnels. There was steel tunnels, no, and he used to stay in there, and you would shout on him, and he would crawl away out and crawl away in. But there's no, I don't know if there's like a wee hut here or something like that, but it must be in and about there somewhere because. I mean, he's still there, do you know what I mean? It's not hard to not see him, do you know what I mean?
He was meant to have jumped off a Russian boat and they broke his jaw on the boat, the story goes. So he's jumped off and he's swam and he's been up to Wilson's bus terminal and he stays behind there and they feed him, the kids feed him and stuff. I used to stay in a high flat and I used to watch him from the top of a high flat. So I used to get in and leave him cigarettes and stuff.
So you have seen him?
Aye, I've seen him with my own eyes. He's on the internet. It's when in News of the World, see News of the World, the newspaper, when they came looking for him, he disappeared. But he's back, you know what I mean? So you just have to go up Wilson's buses and ask them.
Catman, hey my pal. You my mate and you son? Picture that. I can see that. Hey. Catman, I'm not getting any food for you. I've no food. How do we get food for you?
I'm not sure about the video. I think there's something not quite right about it. But I've seen other photos as well that sort of posed. I saw some very recent photos where it was, you know, a couple of people standing next to him, arms around him, kind of thing. I'm not sure about those either. But what I do think is if it was the case, right, you know, what happened off the back of that was that our local social services went to investigate a situation. You know, that isn't real. That's not part of the story. That's something that they had to go and find out. And what I like to think is that if they did find somebody there, they just gave him his dignity, you know, quietly found him somewhere to stay indoors and didn't, you know, make a big song and dance about it. What they said was they couldn't find anybody that fitted the description or fitted the photos or anything. That might well be true, but equally it might be true that they did, and you know, he sort of found peace towards the end of his life somewhere more sheltered from where he'd been, which would be nice. Even if we just take it as read that there isn't somebody living there anymore, and I walk along that street, you know, fairly regularly and know that I haven't seen anybody there for quite some time, so let's assume that he's not around, right? Well, the last time he was actually sighted was about 10 years ago, as far as I'm aware, so that story's still being told after 10 years. That's quite interesting. In fact, the story started being told 30 years ago, so that's quite interesting. I don't see any reason why it won't become a local legend that people talk about, because the way to do that is through what you're doing just now. You know, that keeps that story being told. But I talk about it to my kids, you know, who share it with their friends. So I think there's enough there to keep it told for a wee while longer, definitely. I do genuinely have a memory of when I was walking to my gran's. She stayed in the flats in the East End with my brother and my mum, and we were walking along the cobbles of Scots Lane, and I remember seeing him sitting in one of the big concrete pipes. There weren't any cats there that day, but there were still tins of cat food all strewn around about him, and he was just sitting, right? Now, when I asked my mum about that, she can't remember it. My brother remembers it. I can't 100% rely on that as a memory, but I think I saw him, and I've spoke to other people that saw him, so I know that I'm pretty confident there was a guy living in that lane when I was growing up. So that Catman, yeah, I'm sure he was real. Whether that's the same guy from more recently, that I'm not sure about. I don't know that it actually matters. That wee lane, beside it there's a ridge, and then behind that bus garages, and so the footage that you saw more recently was actually taken in the bus garages, apparently, not within where he used to live, if you like. And it's not the sort of space you go out your way to walk along, you know. There's easier ways now to get quicker to where you're going than to use Scots Lane, and it's not terribly inviting in the dark, so I don't imagine it would be very easy to find them if you were really looking for them.
Catman. Catman.
Campbell.
All right, Catman. Catman.
Got some food, Catman?
Catman. All right, Catman.
If there is genuinely a guy who in theory has been sleeping rough for 30 odd years in the same place, that's feeding cats and getting attacked by local young people and being filmed and eating rats, right? If that's all true, why would the community be proud of that fact? That sort of suggests that collectively we've not done a very good job of looking after somebody. I tend to think, he wasn't a guy that was out there eating rats, he was just a guy that was sleeping rough.
Catman, how did you end up with ice? So have you got your work?